Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Merry Christmas to all of you celebrating out there.
It's Christmas. Merry Crisis. Merry Chrysler.
All I want for Christmas is for Assassin's Creed Odyssey to stop giving me men to have sex with. I don't know if the game is trying to tell me something, but I am sick of it. I need to take my mind off it. And now we are going to be doing a keep, bench, sell with the entire Manchester City squad 2024-2025. No need for a massive intro. You know the drill. Let's do this. First up for the goalkeepers, we have Scott Carson. I would keep him. Benching him would be a little bit too disrespectful in my opinion. And I'm not trying to compare Scott Carson, 2 Champions Leagues. Alisson, 1. Next up, we have the most decorated goalkeeper in Premier League history. For right now, I would bench him just until he can get his form up because the other guy has been having some incredible, miraculous saves lately. But Ederson for right now is a bench. And last but not least, to round up the goalkeepers, we have Stefan Ortega. An absolutely beautiful, beautiful save against Heung-min Son last season. That was a great inside job. This is an obvious keep. First up, we have Manuel Akanji.
Like I'm outside in an AMG.
I would say bench him, but still we don't really have a lot of options, so I'm going to be keeping him and possibly even putting him in my starting lineup. He has been a little bit nonchalant with his tackles recently, a little bit lazy with his tackles, not really putting in a lot of effort. I don't really know if he's even trying as hard as he should. Having some concerns with Manuel Akanji, one of the most underrated signings we've had in our entire history, especially in the Premier League. So I'm obviously going to keep Manuel Akanji. Next up, we have Nathan Ake, and this is an obvious keep. He is a little bit injury prone, not as much as other players, but he still has done the job for us, especially in that treble-winning season. An unsung hero, one of the first names on the team sheet, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen this guy pocket Bukayo Saka and Mohamed Salah within 2.5 weeks of each other. Obviously, I'm keeping him. Next up, we have Rico Lewis, a regen of Philip Lahm himself, if Philip Lahm was a paraplegic who lost the ability to play football a couple of years ago. Rico Lewis has been a little bit sluggish recently, always on the floor, doesn't really have the strength to mound off defenders and mound off attackers. He has lost his touch. Man of the match performance against Chelsea at the Bridge. I'm not going to forget that performance. Obviously, I'm not going to sell him, but for right now, I'm going to be benching Rico Lewis. Next up, we have Joshua Gvardiol, and this is a little bit of a weird one because I've seen a little bit of disrespect from some Manchester City YouTubers over the last couple of weeks for Joshua Gvardiol. I'm not going to name names, but it's been a little bit strange and peculiar for me. Yes, he has had a couple of defensive mistakes, but he is one of the most talented defenders in world football, the highest scoring defender in 2024 for a calendar year, ladies and gentlemen. I believe this guy will come good. I believe in him. Yes, I said the same thing about Rico Lewis, with him having a little bit of defensive lapses, a little bit sluggish, but Joshua Gvardiol has had some great performances this season. He even in the performances that people were saying that he's failed in, that he was like shit in, he's had some good moments. Beautiful player, especially in our defensive and attacking output. He gels a team player. He's a perfect Guardiola type player. He will come good. I am obviously keeping this guy. Next up, we have Kyle Walker, a guy that cares more about Twitter accounts than his performances on the pitch. It is a sell for me, not in the summer, in January. I am being 100% serious, ladies and gentlemen. Most of the goals that we concede are on his side, and when we don't play him, the records speak for himself. When we don't play Kyle Walker, we win games. When we play him, we lose and we concede a shit ton of goals. A legend of our club, possibly our greatest ever right back. One of the worst captains we've ever seen in our club. You made Rasmus Højlund look good in a football match. That takes skill. It's time to say goodbye to Kyle Walker. I will always remember the good moments that you've had. But for right now, it's a sell. This is going to be the easiest one in terms of our defenders. Ruben Dias is an obvious keep, in my opinion. Our best defender by a country mile. One of the few world-class defenders. One of the few world-class center halves in world football right now. The player that I feel most secure with in our team. Next up, we have John Stones, one of the most popular figures that we have in the Manchester City squad. This, however, is going to be pretty unpopular. I would sell him. Not in January, though. I would sell him in the summer. We are in for a massive rebuild. A lot of players are going to be going out, and this is the player that I think we should cash in on if we're being smart. John Stones is made out of glass. He doesn't really have the physical ability to play 90 minutes. I do believe we should really replace this guy in the summer with somebody fresh, young, and new. Even the last game, he played 45 minutes and we had to sub him off because of an injury at halftime. So right now, John Stones is a sell.
Or you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
First up, we have Oscar Bobb, and this is obviously a keep in my opinion. He could have been such a massive help for this season, especially with our lackluster form and our horrid list of injuries. Oscar Bobb is somebody that I am patiently waiting for to return from injury. He's an exquisite football player, beautiful, beautiful player on that wing. I can't wait to see his left foot in action at the Etihad soon. Should be coming back in like 5 or 6 weeks. An easy decision for me, keep. Next up, we have Kevin De Bruyne, and this is going to be very unpopular. But I think it's time that we recognize that this is going to be Kevin De Bruyne's last season at Manchester City. So because of his injuries, his age, it's catching up to him. He doesn't really have the legs to do it week in, week out. I would say sell Kevin De Bruyne, get as much money for him as possible, because otherwise he's going to be leaving for free in a couple of years, and I'd rather cash in on him now. I want him to have one last dance at Manchester City and secure a top 4 finish. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if it was up to me, I would say bench, but I do think realistically that the board is going to be moving on from Kevin De Bruyne, especially with Saudi Arabia and the MLS circling around him. I do think that we should sell him if that's the case. Right now, it's a sell for Kevin De Bruyne. Next up, we have Jeremy Doku. We definitely need some youthful exuberance and some unpredictability in our squad, especially on that wing, and Doku provides that in abundance. Obviously, keep him. Next up, we have Phil Foden, and obviously I'm not going to be selling this guy, nor do I really want to bench him given our options on the field. I would 100% keep him. He will come good at the end of the season. I do believe in Phil Foden. However, lackluster season given his standards from last season, the PFA Player of the Year last season, the best player in the Premier League last season. For right now, I'm keeping him. I do think he needs to be a little bit less selfish and play the ball into Erling Haaland for once. Next up, we have Jack Grealish, and I'm not going to be selling him, obviously. I'm going to be benching Jack Grealish for right now. I want him to come into the game in a midfield position and provide some spark and creativity in that midfield position. I really want Jeremy Doku on that left-hand side. I love Jack Grealish, but I do think with our game plan and with the way teams are rolling over us, I do think we need some unpredictability and some speed on the wings. Right now, it's a bench for Jack Grealish. Next up, we have Mateo Kovacic. This is going to be pretty, self-explanatory. Keep him at all costs because of our injury to Rodri. We should be replacing players like that in the future, but I do think Kovacic does have a couple of years in him at Manchester City, especially in that center defensive mid option, especially for this season. I want to keep him. Next up is James McAtee, and I'm going to be saying keep. Notice how I didn't say bench because I want this guy to be playing 100 times more the amount of minutes that he's been playing in the last couple of months. I really think we need some spark and creativity in that midfield. Phil Foden is a little bit selfish with his play. James McAtee is a complete opposite player. He's a young player that wants to prove himself in the right moments, and he's going to be making those passes. I'm so sick of Guardiola not giving this guy a chance. Keeping James McAtee. I don't want to sell him in January. I'd be furious if that happens. Next up, we have Matheus Nunes, an unsung hero for Manchester City this season. I would obviously keep him. Don't really want to bench him or sell him, obviously. Matheus Nunes has been stepping up. He had a great performance against Manchester United. That pass to Amad Diallo was obviously a stinker, but I'm not going to forget what he did in the first 80 minutes of that game. So I'm obviously keeping Matheus Nunes. Next up, we have Savinho, and this is an obvious keep in my opinion. This is his first season at Manchester City. He still hasn't really gelled to the team as much as we would have liked. He was touted as the next Riyad Mahrez in the beginning of the season, and those comparisons have exponentially decayed. Savinho needs to step it up in terms of the goals and assists category in his game. He has an exquisite ability to dribble the ball and create space and create some spark on the field out of nothing. I do think he will come good, especially in the next couple of years. For right now, I am keeping him. Next up, we have Bernardo Silva, and I am going to be benching Bernardo Silva. He is a player that doesn't really get a lot of criticism, in my opinion, especially in the Portuguese squad. Let's be real, ladies and gentlemen, I am being unbiased here. It's usually Bruno Fernandes, Cristiano Ronaldo that gets criticism, not really Bernardo Silva when he doesn't perform as good as those other two players. And it's the same thing for Manchester City. He hasn't been performing well this season, in my opinion. He has been a little bit sluggish, giving the ball away a lot recently. I would bench this guy 100%. Next up, we have Rodri, a guy who's gained more credibility after a Ballon d'Or than during his Ballon d'Or season. In my opinion, one of the most deserved Ballon d'Or wins in the last 30 years. Obviously, keep him. Best player in the world on his day. And last but not least, for the midfielders, we have Ilkay Gündogan, my uncle. This is going to be a little bit unpopular, but I'm going to say sell. Either in January or in the summer, I don't mind. I do think that his time in Manchester City needs to come to an end. I would love him to get out of his contract at the end of the season and become an assistant coach under Pep Guardiola and gain some coaching experience and then become a coach. Maybe go to Turkey, go to Saudi Arabia, go wherever you want, or to the Bundesliga, wherever you want for the next couple of years. Or if you want to become a coach, I do think it's a good opportunity for him because I do think he's going to be a coach in the future. 100%, we could all see it, ladies and gentlemen. His time in terms of his return to Manchester City hasn't been as extraordinary as we would have liked as fans. We are never going to forget his title run-ins, especially in that pandemic season. Title run-in Ilkay Gündogan is the greatest midfielder in Premier League history. But for right now, it's a sell. And last but not least, our forwards, or forward, Erling Haaland, keep. However, I do think that if we don't start playing some counterattacking football, if we don't start feeding this guy on their counterattacks, I do believe that Erling Haaland might actually leave Manchester City. Not only, I'm not talking about in like 4 or 5 years, I'm talking about this summer. I'm not kidding, ladies and gentlemen. If we don't start giving this guy the ball, giving this guy more opportunities, I do think that Erling Haaland is going to say, you know what? I'm sick of this. It's not really my play style. I like counterattacking football. I'm not really fond of tiki-taka. It was great my first year winning the treble, but for right now it's a little bit sluggish, and I don't really get to touch the ball at all for 90 minutes, and I wouldn't blame him as a striker myself. As a former striker myself, I really wouldn't blame him for leaving. Well, that concludes this video, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all have a fantastic Christmas Eve and a Christmas tomorrow. Can't wait for that game against Everton in a couple of days. I'm so excited. We definitely need some 3 points. I definitely expect Erling Haaland and some other players to bounce back in that game. I believe in my team at the Etihad. I tried to be a little bit heartfelt and a little bit realistic with my picks. Share your opinions down below. Who do you think should be sold? Who do you think we should keep? Who do you think we should bench? Any opinions, any criticism of the video and our players and for the season, I would greatly appreciate it. I would love to read your comments. If you ask some City fans on Twitter and on social media, some of them want to sell like 8 or 9 players. I am not on that boat, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, I want to be realistic with my picks. Let me know down in the comments down below what you thought of the video. Merry Christmas. I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you are new. I will see you all next time.